I was locking up my HVAC shop for the night, the neon sign buzzing overhead, when my phone rang. Mom lit up on the screen. I smiled, half expecting her usual "Should you bring pecan or pumpkin pie" call. Instead, her voice came through low and oddly hesitant. "Oh, honey, I wanted to talk to you about Thanksgiving." Something in her tone made my stomach clench. "Sure, what's up?" I said, climbing into my truck. A pause. Too long. Then, "We think it might be best if you skip dinner this year." I nearly swerved into the next lane. "Wait, what? What do you mean skip?" Mom sighed. The kind of sigh she used before feeding me polite nonsense. "Well, it's just, Serafina's boyfriend is bringing his parents and we're keeping things a little more formal this year." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "I am close family, Mom." "Of course you are," she replied, syrup sweet. "But you know how these professional families can be. It's important Serafina makes a good impression." There it was. The gut punch. My job, my life, wasn't up to their standard. So because I wear work boots and not a blazer, I'm suddenly bad for the family brand? "Oh, don't make this about you." "No," I cut in, laughing bitterly. "You made it about me the second you uninvited me from the damn table." She tried to soften it. "We'll do brunch next weekend." I hung up. And for a long time, I just sat there in the dark, my hands frozen on the steering wheel, realizing no matter how much I gave, I was never going to be enough for them. I was still sitting in my truck when my phone buzzed again, the engine idling, the dashboard lights casting a dull blue glow across my hands. I almost ignored it. After Mom's call, I didn't have the energy for anything else. But when I saw Genevieve's name, something in my chest tightened. "I need to tell you something. It's about Thanksgiving." I stared at the message for a long second before typing back. "What is it?" The reply came almost immediately. "I overheard your mom and Serafina talking. She told Mom she didn't want you there." My breath caught. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. "Why?" I typed, even though part of me already knew. There was a pause. Then the words appeared on my screen, line by line, slow and brutal. "She said she was worried Dorian's parents would think your family comes from a working-class background. She didn't want you there because of how it would look." I read it twice, then a third time. Each time it landed harder, like a bruise you keep pressing just to prove it's real. Working class. Like it was something shameful. Like the years I'd spent fixing broken systems, crawling through attics, building a business with my own hands, were some kind of stain to hide. My fingers curled around the phone until my knuckles went white. This was the same sister whose tuition I paid without missing a deadline. The same one whose rent, books, and emergencies I covered without ever asking for credit. And she was embarrassed by me. I leaned my head back against the seat and laughed, a short, broken sound that didn't feel like humor at all. Suddenly, everything made sense, the missed invitations, the vague introductions, the way she always changed the subject when someone asked what I did for a living. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't thoughtless. It was deliberate. And in that quiet truck, with the city humming outside my windows, something inside me finally cracked. Not loudly. Cleanly. Like a line drawn I couldn't step back over. I should have seen it years ago. The way Serafina would dodge questions about me at her college events. The quick, nervous glances when I showed up in my work boots, still smelling faintly of Freon and dust. "This is family," she'd say with a tight smile. "Never my sister." Never lol. I used to laugh it off. Told myself she was just distracted, maybe embarrassed because I always showed up straight from a job site. I made excuses. God, I made so many excuses. But now I see it for what it was. Shame. My little sister, the future lawyer with polished nails and perfect diction, was ashamed of me. Ashamed that while she was memorizing tort law in air-conditioned classrooms, I was climbing into crawl spaces to fix broken heat pumps. Ashamed that the same calloused hands paying for her textbooks weren't manicured enough to be seen. And the worst part? I let her get away with it. I remember showing up to her apartment once, unannounced, thinking I'd surprise her with takeout. She met me on the sidewalk before I even made it to the door. "Now's not a good time," she said, barely making eye contact. Her friends were inside. She didn't want them to see me. That moment comes back to me now like a splinter I never pulled out, small, sharp, and impossible to ignore. She's been erasing me in little ways for years. And I let her. Not anymore. I woke up the next morning before my alarm, the gray Seattle light leaking through the blinds like it always did. The apartment was quiet, except for the low hum of traffic outside, and the drip of my coffee maker warming up in the kitchen. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt clear, like a fog had finally lifted. I sat at my small dining table, laptop open, mug warming my hands. Logging into the university's payment portal was muscle memory at this point. I'd done it every semester without thinking, between work orders, lunch breaks, late nights after emergency calls. Username ... Password ... Click ... Serafina's account loaded instantly. Balance due $2,500. 2 weeks. I stared at the number longer than I expected. Not because I was scared, but because I could see everything behind it. Missed vacations, overtime weekends, telling myself it's temporary, telling myself family helps family. I had never once asked her to thank me. I had never asked her to even acknowledge what I gave up. My cursor hovered over the payment method. For a split second, I heard my mom's voice in my head. "Don't be dramatic. She's your sister." Then I remembered the empty seat at Thanksgiving. The photos where I didn't exist. I clicked remove payer. A pop-up appeared. "Are you sure? This action cannot be undone." I didn't hesitate. When the confirmation message flashed on the screen, my shoulders dropped like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't realize was there. No fireworks. No guilt spiral. Just a deep, steady breath. I closed the laptop, took a sip of coffee, and looked around my apartment, my life, my work, my choices. For the first time, I wasn't funding someone else's future while being erased from it. I finally chose myself. And the quiet that followed felt earned. The call came before my coffee even had time to cool. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, Mom's name lighting up the screen like a warning I already understood. I answered anyway. "What are you doing?" she snapped, skipping hello. Her voice had that tight edge it always got when something slipped out of her control. "Serafina is hysterical. She says you cut off her tuition." I leaned against the counter and stared out the window at the gray Seattle morning. "I did." There was a sharp inhale on the other end. "How could you be so cruel, Elle? You promised to support her." Cruel. The word landed heavy, but it didn't break me. Not anymore. I took a slow sip of coffee. I promised to help my sister. I didn't promise to bankroll someone who was ashamed to sit at the same table as me. "She didn't mean it that way," Mom said quickly, sliding into that familiar, sugary tone. "She was just trying to make a good impression. You know how these things work." "That's the problem," I replied, my voice steady but tired. "I do know how this works. I give, she takes, and everyone pretends that's normal." "She's only 24, Mom argued. "She doesn't think things through." "She is old enough to know exactly what she was doing," I said. My hand tightened around the mug. "She erased me, and you helped her do it." Silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. Finally, Mom sighed. "You're overreacting. Family makes sacrifices." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "Funny how family only comes up when I'm the one paying." She started to speak again, but I cut in, exhaustion finally cracking through my calm. "I'm done, Mom. I didn't abandon her. I just stopped letting myself be used." When I hung up, my chest still ached, but beneath the fatigue was something solid. When? Cowl. Resolve. For the first time, I wasn't backing down. The calls started just after sunset. First my aunt. Then my dad. Then cousins I hadn't heard from since high school. One by one, they came in like a tidal wave. Voicemails, texts, even DMs on Instagram. "Oh, this is going too far. I never thought you'd be so heartless." She's your sister, for God's sake. Each message landed like a slap. Not one of them had reached out after I was shut out of Thanksgiving. Not a single person had asked if I was okay. But now that Serafina's tuition wasn't magically paid by the invisible hand of the responsible one, suddenly I was a monster. I stared at my phone lighting up on the kitchen counter, untouched, just buzzing. Again, and again, and again. At one point, Uncle Larry called and left a voicemail that said, "Elle, it's just money. You make plenty, don't be petty." Petty. That's what it was called when I stopped funding someone who erased me. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because deep down, I already knew. None of them were upset about what happened to me. They were upset that I'd stopped playing my part. The silent provider. The dependable one. The bank account with no boundaries. It wasn't just rejection. It was betrayal, painted in the voices of people who only remembered I existed when I stopped giving. And for the first time, I didn't chase after their approval. I let them talk. I let them twist it. But I didn't answer. Because this time, I chose silence for me. Not for them. I knew she'd spin it. I just didn't think she'd be this calculated. It started with a post on Instagram, some vague quote in soft pink font over a blurry sunset. "Some people choose money over family. That's on them." I almost laughed. Almost. But then I scrolled through the comments. "You deserve better, babe. Stay strong. You've always had the biggest heart. I can't believe your own sister would do that to you." Each one hit like a punch to the gut. Names I recognize, cousins, old family friends, even our childhood neighbor, people who hadn't said a single word to me since Thanksgiving, now lining up to wrap Serafina in digital sympathy. She never mentioned me by name, of course. She didn't have to. The implication was clear. I was the greedy villain in her curated sob story. The heartless sister who pulled the rug out from under her out of spite. It was a masterclass in victim performance, just enough sadness to trigger concern, just enough ambiguity to stay classy. And I knew her well enough to know she was loving every second of it. My chest burned. Not from shame, but from fury. She was manipulating everyone, painting herself as the one who'd been wronged, while I sat in silence, carrying the weight of every sacrifice I made for her. I set my phone down and stared at the ceiling. Let them believe her for now, I thought. Let her play the part, lying. But when the cracks start to show, and they always do, she'll learn that you can't lie your way out forever. And I won't be there to catch her when she falls. I didn't call ahead. I didn't knock softly. I pounded on Serafina's apartment door like I meant it, because I did. When she opened it, she had her phone in one hand and a fake smile on her face. "Elle," she said, sugary sweet. "Wow, what a surprise." I walked right past her. She scoffed and shut the door behind me. "Well, come on in, why don't you?" I turned to face her, voice low but sharp. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Her brows lifted. "I'm sorry, I don't." I held up my phone. Her latest social post glowed on the screen. "Some people love money more than family." So disappointing. "Don't play dumb," I snapped. "You're out here painting me as the villain while conveniently leaving out the part where I paid your tuition for 3 years. Her smirk faded. "I never asked you to." "Exactly," I said. "You just took, quietly, repeatedly. And now that I stopped, you spin it like I abandoned you." She crossed her arms. "I was just telling the truth." "No, Serafina, you're telling the version that makes you look good. But here's the thing, when your little house of cards comes crashing down, I'm not coming to dig you out." She tried to look unfazed, but I saw it. The flicker of panic. I stepped toward the door. "Keep lying if it makes you feel powerful. Just know this, whatever's coming next, you'll face it without me." And I left, without slamming the door. I didn't need to. The silence I left behind said everything. I found out the truth on a quiet Wednesday night, the kind that makes you think nothing important is about to happen. Serafina had been pacing my apartment for days, stressed, distracted, snapping at small things. She kept saying her tuition issue was a temporary glitch, that her parents were handling it. Something in her voice didn't sit right with me. So when she went to shower, I did something I'd never done before. I called the university's finance office. It took a few transfers, a hold song that looped too long, and one polite confirmation question. Then the woman on the line said it, calm and factual, like she was reading the weather. The account has historically been paid by a sponsor listed as L. Calloway. That sponsor was removed last week. I felt heat rush to my face. Not her parents? I asked. No, sir. When Serafina came out, wrapped in a towel, humming like everything was normal, I couldn't even look at her. I just held up my phone. Why didn't you tell me your sister was paying for your entire education? Her smile faltered for half a second. That was all it took. She started talking fast. About pressure. About appearances. About how she didn't want me to think she came from that kind of background. Every word landed wrong. Every excuse made it worse. And Thanksgiving? I asked quietly. You didn't want her there because she embarrassed you? She didn't answer. That silence told me everything. I realized I wasn't just dating someone ambitious. I was dating someone who could erase the person supporting her, then lie about it without blinking. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and felt something inside me harden. I need space, I said. She asked if I was really mad over money. I wasn't. I was done with the dishonesty. And for the first time since I met her, I walked away without looking back. The email hit my inbox at 7:43 a.m., subject line screaming, final notice, tuition balance due. My heart dropped. I sat straight up in bed, blinking at the screen like maybe I was reading it wrong. But no. It was real. If I didn't pay $2,500 in 48 hours, I'd be dropped from enrollment. Just like that. I scrambled. I tried my parents first, of course I did, but the second I submitted the loan form with their info, it came back denied. Too much debt. Too many missed payments. I tried again with a different lender. Rejected. I was sinking fast, clawing at air. So I did the one thing I never thought I'd have to do. I called Ella. Blocked. I stared at the screen in disbelief. My hands were shaking. I tried texting. Nothing. I tried again. Nothing. For the first time in my life, I felt what it meant to have no safety net. No backup plan. No one coming to save me. All the carefully constructed pieces of my life, my law school, my future, my place in this world I thought I belonged to, were dangling by a thread. And now, it was snapping. I curled up on my bed, my knees pulled to my chest, phone clutched in my hand like it could undo everything. But it didn't ring. Elle wasn't coming. No one was. And that's when it hit me. The consequences were real. And this time they were mine to carry. Alone. I was in the middle of a Monday staff meeting when the front door slammed open so hard the glass rattled. The room fell silent. And there she was, Serafina, standing in the doorway like a storm that had lost its way. Her hair was wild, mascara smudged, and her eyes burned with something between fury and desperation. She didn't pause. She marched straight in, jabbing a finger toward me. You ruined my life, she screamed. You abandoned me. Every employee froze. Phones hovered midair. My office manager slowly set down her notepad. I didn't flinch. I placed my clipboard on the desk and met her gaze. No, Serafina, I stopped paying for it. That's not the same. She spun to face the others, arms flailing. You don't get it. She left me with nothing. She's selfish. She's not who you all think she is. The silence that followed was deafening. No one moved. No one nodded. No one defended her. And then Harry, my senior tech, stepped forward. Calm, firm. Ma'am, this is a place of business. You need to leave. Serafina turned on him, shocked. I'm her sister. Harry didn't blink. And you're trespassing. Her face crumbled, just for a second. Then came the yelling, the cursing, the flailing. But it didn't matter. Security had already been called. I stood there quiet, composed, as they walked her out. Her screams echoed through the hallway, but for once, I didn't feel responsible. She had come to destroy me in front of my own people. Instead, she revealed who she really was. And this time, no one was clapping for the performance. I knew the number before I picked up. Mom lit up my screen like a warning label. Her voice was soft at first, too soft. "Ayla, we need to talk." I didn't say anything. Dad chimed in from the background, clearing his throat like he was stepping into a courtroom. "Look, honey, maybe things got out of hand, but Serafina's young, she needs help." There it was. Not a single question about how I was doing after being tossed out of Thanksgiving like garbage. No apology. Just the same old dance, guilt first, then the ask. I closed my eyes and leaned against the counter. "Let me guess. You want me to help her out, again?" Mom sighed, drawing out the word like she was the victim. "Maybe we can work something out. You're doing well after all." I let out a low laugh, sharp and tired. "Ah, so now I'm part of the family again because you need my money." "Oh, don't be like this," Dad said, his voice stiff with disapproval. I straightened up, my hand tightening around the edge of the sink. "No, you don't get to play the loving parent card only when it's convenient. I'm done being your backup plan." There was silence on the line. Long, heavy, and telling. "You think I'll cave?" I said quietly. "But this time, find another ATM?" And I hung up. No tears. No second guessing. Just silence. And finally, peace. The shift happened almost overnight. 1 week, I was the silent supporter. The sister who paid the bills, the daughter who never asked for anything. The next, I was public enemy number 1. It started with whispers. A strange pause in a cousin's voice when she returned my call. A cold clipped email from an uncle who used to send me Christmas cards every year. Then came the full-blown smear campaign. They didn't say my name outright, of course. That would have taken guts. Instead, it was passive-aggressive Facebook posts, pointed dinner conversations I wasn't invited to, and secondhand comments that somehow made their way back to me. Some people just don't understand the meaning of family. It's sad when money turns someone bitter. She used to be so generous. I became the villain in their story. The heartless one. The one who abandoned her sister in a time of need. Never mind the years I spent quietly covering tuition, rent, and groceries. None of that made the cut in their version. Not a single person called to ask how I was doing. Not one. They didn't want the truth. They wanted a scapegoat. And honestly, that hurt more than I expected. It wasn't just about Serafina anymore. It was about realizing that, for most of them, my worth had always been transactional. Useful when I was giving. Disposable when I stopped. So I stopped explaining. Let them talk. Let them twist the story to fit their comfort. I knew what I had done. And more importantly, I knew what I would never do again. I was halfway through my lunch break, sitting on the steps behind the shop with a lukewarm coffee in one hand and the winter sun barely warming my face, when my phone buzzed. Genevieve. I hesitated for a second, wasn't sure if I was ready to hear anything else about my family. But something told me to answer. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Hey," she replied, her voice softer than usual. "I just wanted to check in, see how you're holding up." I took a slow breath. Honestly, better than I thought I'd be. There was a pause. Then she said, "I figured, but I thought you'd want to know what's going on with them." I didn't ask who them was. I already knew. "Serafina moved back home," Genevieve continued. "She's dropped out, at least for now, says she needs time to figure things out. But, well, you know how she is." I closed my eyes. None of it surprised me. "And your parents?" I asked. "They're struggling, financially, emotionally. But of course they're still blaming you for everything," she said, a bitter laugh behind her words. "Like it's your fault Serafina burned every bridge she had." I let out a quiet breath, something between a sigh and a laugh. Sounds about right. There was a silence. Then Genevieve said, gently, for what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. You deserved better. You still do. For the first time in a while, I felt the knot in my chest loosen, just a little. Thanks, Jen. Anytime, she said. And hey, Merry Christmas. For the first time in my life, I could breathe without asking permission. No more tuition deadlines. No more silent sacrifices. No more twisting myself into someone I wasn't just to be palatable for people who never really saw me. It was quiet now, almost unnervingly so. But that silence, it didn't ache anymore. It felt like space. Like possibility. I poured that energy back into my HVAC business. I upgraded the shop, hired 2 new techs, finally took the time to redesign our outdated logo. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building, growing, living on my terms. Not for approval. Not for family peace. For me. For me. I stopped hiding my success. I stopped making myself smaller so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. I wore the title business owner with pride now. Not because it impressed anyone, but because I earned it. Every late night. Every skipped weekend. Every job I took to keep someone else afloat. That was over. Now, my future wasn't built around someone else's dreams. It was finally mine. I started traveling. Took a solo trip to Santa Fe. Learned how to say no without over-explaining. Decorated my apartment the way I wanted. Funky thrift store finds, exposed brick walls lined with books. My space. My rules. Was it lonely sometimes? Sure. But not as lonely as sitting at a family dinner table and still feeling invisible. Freedom didn't come wrapped in a celebration. It came quietly. In choices. In boundaries. In peace. And let me tell you, there is nothing more powerful than a woman who finally realizes she doesn't owe anyone her silence, her money, or her seat at the table. I don't just feel free. I am free. Let me leave you with this, because if no one else has said it to you, I will. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It's survival. For too long, I mistook loyalty for love. I believed being the reliable one, the one who never needed anything, who always said, I've got it, would earn me a place at the table. But it didn't. It earned me silence, disrespect, erasure. And when I finally said, enough, the world around me acted like I'd committed some crime. Family, friends, people I'd bent over backward for, suddenly they had opinions. Suddenly I was the problem. But here's what I've learned. You are not just a paycheck. You are not a backup plan. You are not a bank account dressed in human skin. You deserve respect, even from people who share your last name. Especially from them. So, if you're sitting there right now, carrying guilt for drawing a boundary, for protecting your peace, for saying no after years of saying yes, I need you to hear this. You're allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to stop bleeding for people who wouldn't offer you a band-aid. You're allowed to outgrow the roles they boxed you into. And if that makes you the villain in their story, so be it. Because you're finally writing your own.